Hi guys, welcome back. So we are in week 2 notes of exponent rules, and what we're going to talk about today are problems like 8, 9, and 10. So the first day of this week we talked about zero property and how anything to the zero power is 1. The next day we talked about negative exponents, and up there in yellow it says if there's a negative exponent you flip the location, so if it's in the numerator it goes to the denominator, if it's in the denominator it goes to the numerator, and you drop the negative and then simplify. So 8, 9, and 10 are going to combine negative exponents and quotient property. Okay? So we're going to do these three problems here. These three problems here correspond to numbers 7 and 8 on your homework. So these three problems here correspond to 7 and 8 on your homework. Okay? So let's get started. There's no new properties or anything like that today. We're just going to solve these problems. So here we go. First thing I'm going to do is separate move my negatives. So my 14 is perfectly fine here. My negative 28 is fine because the exponent's still 1. I have an x1 down here because there's no exponent on that 1, so I put a 1. And then x negative 2, so that negative 2 needs to come below. And then I leave that y1 on top. Okay? So now if I want to, what I can do is I can separate things up. So I'm going to separate up my numbers, my x's, and my y's. Okay? So what does that give me? Well, 14 and negative 28. Well, 7 goes into both of those. So I'm left with 2, actually bigger than 17 goes in there, doesn't it? Doesn't 14 goes into both those? Let's make it bigger. So 14 goes into both those. So I'm going to divide these numbers by 14. So I get 1 over negative 2. And then I have an x1 and an x2 on bottom. So when I have them on bottom, I add the exponents. So I get x3. And then I have that y1 sitting on top, so that y1 stays on top. So that's my answer. y1 over negative x to the third. So all we're doing is moving our negative exponents, not negative numbers, because that negative 28 is a coefficient, but the exponents, what's my issue? It's okay to have a negative number. Okay? And then I'm simplifying them down. So let's continue that on number 9. So I'm going to move things around first. So when I do that, I end up with 70 x2 over 2. And then I know that negative 9, I can move up top to positive. So let's separate those out now. So I move the negative, and when I move the negative 9 on top, it drops. So I get 70 over 2. And then I'm left with an x2 on top over nothing, or over 1 if I want to put a 1 there. And then I'm left with a y9 on top over 1. Okay? So then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify. Well, I'm going to divide 70 and 2 by 2. So I'm left with 35 over 1, right? So I get 35 and I get my 1. x2, nothing to simplify with, and y9, nothing to simplify with. So I can leave my answer like this, and that's perfectly fine as an answer, 35 x2 y9. Or mathematically what you're going to see is you're going to see it written just as that, because that 1 on the denominator doesn't really do anything. So 35 x2 y9. Okay? So again, we're just combining quotient property and negative exponents today. So a lot of things that you've worked on, just trying to take it piece by piece, because exponent rules can be a little bit confusing sometimes, and I don't want you guys to get confused at all. I want us to be able to take our time with them, make sure we understand them, because you will see them a lot when it comes to geometry and Algebra 2 trig. Okay? So let's do this last problem here. So I have negative 17 over x to the negative 2. There's a 1 on that x. I'm going to move it. So I'm going to first move things around. So my negative 17 is fine. because my exponent is not negative. It's just a negative number. I'm going to get 374 here. That x1's fine. And that x negative 2 tells me, nope, you need to move it on the bottom. Okay? So I'm going to separate those up. So I'm going to separate my numbers and my variables. So I'm left with this here. So I have negative 17 and 374. Well, 17 can go into both those. So I'm going to divide those by 17. So I'm left with negative 1. And 374 divided by 17 is 22. Then I have x1 and x2 on bottom. So I add the exponents and I get x3. And that would be my answer. Negative 1 over 22x to the third. Okay? So again, those problems, 8, 9, and 10, correspond to 7 and 8 on your homework. Make sure the first thing you want to do before you do anything is you move the negative exponents. Do not simplify first. Move the negative exponents if there's any. If there's not, great. Then start simplifying and start combining things based on what we worked on last week. Okay. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great day, guys. And if you make sure you log on to Zoom. Talk to you later.